Tēnā koutou everyone. Hi, I'm Nadia.
And Carlos.
My other half, Carlos. Yeah, thanks for having us here, Seb. We're from Royalburn Station, which isn't too far away. I think it took us about an hour, 15 minutes to drive over. So we're just on the other side of the Crown Range. Yeah, that kind of the farm that's up on the Crown Range on the flats up there. That's us.
I was going to say, if you drive the Crown Range Road and you see sheep and crops, it's probably us.
Yeah.
So I guess, like, sort of dovetailing back into Monique's story there, like, we can talk a little bit about processing facilities and various things as we've built. A lot of that on our farm. So our background was, before farming, was food retailing and distribution. So we started a company called My Food Bag, and once we had a liquidity event there, so we had an opportunity to take some money off the table. And someone once said to me, if you want to make a small fortune in farming, start with a large fortune, which truthfully was probably the scenario with Royalburn. Like, it's very, very challenging to take over a farm and like that one and do something different with it. But that's what we wanted to do. The farm was historically a grain and sheep property, and we thought, well, you know, why don't we do some more of that? And that was kind of the start of the diversification, wasn't it?
Yeah. We've 8 years ago that we bought into it, and as Carlos said, was run as a conventional sheep and barley station for the last few decades. I guess it would have been at least a long time. Yeah. And we ran it that way for the first season, you know, just to get our feet on the ground and make sure that we kind of knew how to run a farm, that we could actually do the farming thing. But then we quite quickly realized that, we wanted to, I guess, dare I say, experiment a bit more, diversify a lot more, and see how we could do things better. Well, that was kind of, that's what we wanted to do. So we started along this journey, which has now been 6 years that we've been farming it. And today the farm looks very different to what it started out as a conventional sheep and barley station. So I would say we are very diversified. I mean, we do everything from pasture-raised free-range chickens. So we have several thousand of them, around almost 9,000 of them for eggs. We do about 10,000 lambs a year. We have our own abattoir and butchery on farm, which is incredible and really unique. There's us and I believe Holy Cow, who we kind of work with and collaborate with, share information and knowledge with. They're based in Cambridge in the North Island. They're the only ones that we know of in New Zealand at the moment who have an on-farm abattoir and butchery on scale. I think there are some other smaller ones, but we're the only two that are of actual decent scale and that have a license to sell commercially. We started the on-site abattoir. Still surprised that we managed to get it across the line because, as you probably know, with regulations and everything, it is something that's really, really hard to do. But anyway, managed to get it across the line over the course of a few years. And we started that because really we wanted to see if there was a different way of doing farm meat. The animals live an incredible life. They truly do. The animals live on pasture like this every day of their lives. But then when it comes to the very last day of their life, it's not so great. And so we thought it would be wonderful if we could make that last day as stress-free as possible. And Carlos, also being from a farm, used to talk about home kill and the taste of home kill and how much better it was than what their family could ever buy in a supermarket. And that's down to what the animal eats, how it's treated through its life, and how it's killed. So that was the basis and start of the abattoir, and it's kind of grown into a bit of a business itself. And then we have the butchery attached to it. The biggest part of the farm is grain. Do you want to talk a bit about that? Grain and seed?
Yeah. So we grow. We're always like trying to fine tune the right crop rotation, and that's been really tricky because we're trying to really limit. We really try to limit or eliminate sprays wherever we can, and certainly a lot of our fertilizers, most of what we use, or pretty much everything we use today, is very sort of biogrow certified stuff, like things like fish hydrolysate. So our cropping is a really unusual sort of part of we've sort of stitched ourselves up. We've made it really hard on ourselves to grow crops, but a lot of it's about crop rotation. So we're utilizing. So right now we've been really busy. We've just harvested all of our cereals. And we've just been really busy putting in cover crops. So our cover crops are, legumes like vetch and faba beans. And this year we're trialling daikon radish. So that's the whole concept behind that, is to make that soil really nice and pliable for the spring when we can direct drill in our barley again next year. But likewise, we grow a lot of chicory and clovers for lamb finishing. So most of our lambs are finished. Nadia touched on it. We do about 10,000 lambs a year, which is a reasonable number of lambs. So what we're looking for is really high protein, high quality nutritional content really in our feed, and chicory and clover is fantastic for that. It's rocket fuel too for the soil. Like once you've had lambs on chicory and clover for 3 years and you direct drill in wheat, you grow great crops. So we also grow a lot of peas, like commercial peas. They're really good for us. They're a good profit spinner, but they're also great for the soil. And small seeds, so red clover, phacelia, and things like sunflowers too. So we're always growing various different types of crops and rotating through our livestock as part of that. So our cover crops will often, we might chuck a little bit of kale or rape into our cover crops just for lamb finishing over the winter. I guess everything for us starts with soil. Like what can we do to ensure that the soil is going to be as good as it can be, as pliable as it can be. We get aeration in the soil. And then we start, we do a lot of soil tests with hill labs. So every year we'll soil test every field on the farm. It's expensive, but it gives us real-time tracking as to where our mineral elements are at. And then at the same time, we're starting to, loosely, I wouldn't say we're experts at this yet, but we're really starting to want to understand the biology of the soil. So how much carbon we've got in the soil and what that looks like. So that's forming part of, if you like, that's the foundations of what we're doing. So how do we get the soil right? How do we grow really good crops? And it's simple, right? Like good soil, as a rule of thumb, good soil, you're going to grow good crops. You grow good crops, you're going to have healthy livestock. And it's sort of a pretty similar fashion of that. Like insofar, and I spotted some lambs here too with tails, which is fantastic. And that was one of the things, to be honest, that was an accident for us. We were late one year tailing lambs, and so we didn't tail them. And then we found that we had 0 situations of fly strike. And we're like, well, why are we spending all this money tailing these lambs and putting the lambs under stress and putting the humans under stress and creating distress for everybody and everything when the lambs are fine? So we buy our store lambs in today, and we spec. We would try to spec for them to have tails, and
which isn't always, but
it doesn't always work. But the reason I bring it up is it's because everything's an experimentation, right? And that's the good news, because now Amersfield buy 100% of our tails. So we've actually, not only do we not spend money tailing, or our farmers who supply us don't spend money tailing, we actually make money out of selling the tails.
Thank you, that's so kind. Thanks.
That was very kind.
That's awesome, yeah. I was like,
So anyway, that's crop rotations, livestock.
Yeah, well, that's a bit of a snapshot of the farming side. I guess what's a bit different with our operation too is that what we've got the primary production there, which we've briefly covered, but then the other half of what we do, which is kind of the non-farming stuff. So we have our own distribution and retail wings. So we have a couple of farm stores, one in Queenstown, one in Arrowtown, that sell all of our direct farm to market products, but also obviously other local producers and farmers from this region and from further out around New Zealand. There are pineapples in the shop at the moment, which aren't from New Zealand though, but haven't found them.
I was going to say, just
so that, and then logistics and distribution.
Yeah, so
as well.
Like wholesale, we're quite big. Most of what we produce goes into the restaurant trade, if you like, and some select retailers as well. So more Wilsons, Farrow Fresh, and a select number of New Worlds in the North Island will take our products. So we've built, if you like, there's 2 halves. The first is the primary production, and the second half is, if you like, is the
bringing to market,
is processing, sales, and distribution. And to be honest, that's where it gets really hard. There's no easy. I know there was conversations before about what that looks like. It's hard. It really is. It's bloody expensive. Takes a huge amount of effort to do. And you've really got to believe in something. It just takes years to build that sales funnel. Yeah.
But that's a bit of background about us and what we do. But really, for you guys to get the most out of this, I figure instead of us just going on and on and on, it's probably best if you tell us maybe what aspects you wanted us to talk about, or what you'd like to learn from our learnings. I don't know if anyone's got any direct questions or
Can you share a little bit about your market garden and the journey, and sort of not too advice you'd give to someone who is starting a market
Yeah.
garden?
Yeah, so we had so we've got 4 acres. One of our little blocks is so the farm's 1,200 acres in total, and we had 4 acres kind of sectioned off for a market garden. First off, we are 650 to 1,000 meters above sea level, which is pretty high. So I believe, I mean, I haven't been able to prove it, but as far as I know, it was the highest altitude market garden in New Zealand with a very short growing season. Our growing season was about 6 months. I have my own big vegetable gardens, and yeah, I understand how short the growing season is. Like, it's much shorter than you'd get down here even. That was one of the first things that made it not probably the best decision to have a market garden up there. The second thing was, as I mentioned, it was a conventionally run sheep and barley station to begin with. So we had converted that land, which was conventionally grown barley, into suddenly a market garden and an organic market garden. I'd say, I mean, we could talk for ages about it, but biggest learning, you can't go from zero to hero. And yeah, don't expect to, not a great idea. We'll, basically going from conventional barley field to suddenly being an organic market garden is just pushing too far against what was there before. You have to earn your stripes, I think. And if we could go back in time, we wouldn't have gone organic to begin with. Because you're just up against so much, and you've really got to have a program to work towards it. I mean, if I was going to do it all again, probably start off we would have had to have sprayed everything out. Really, you would have to start with a clean slate, and then we'd go spray free with the crops that we were growing, and then work towards being organic. But it was a big mistake to go from zero to hero, and it reflects.
It was a cost to resource was
Yeah.
the biggest thing. Like, you'd sell. I think we sold in the final year. I think we sold $61,000 or $62,000 worth of produce, and we spent $95,000 in human resource. Like.
Yeah. Well, when you're paying someone $30 an hour to pull out couch grass,
It's just
it's never going to work.
Could you do it? Yes, you could, but I think you'd want to have a controlled environment to do that.
Yeah.
I think doing it in soil, in this elevation, with a really short growing season, would very, very challenging.
We also did start with probably too many lines. Like in the beginning, we had probably 35 to 40 different lines of things. We did whittle that down to about 10, which
we found the main hero crops was hard to they'd all come on at once, right? So all the tomatoes or everything would all come on at once, and the sales team are trying to then sell that product, because of course to get on a chef's menu they're after continuity of supply, and so every week they need to know that every week they can call you and get that produce. If all of a sudden you call up and go, hey, we've got 4 tons of courgettes, well, that's not particularly helpful for anybody. Yeah.
Well, we only had the one small shop at the time. Maybe today, we would, because our other store in Queenstown is much bigger, maybe could have taken all the produce, probably could have. The other big thing, like I'd say anyone who's thinking of going into market garden, great, if that's what you want for a lifestyle, cool, go for it. But it's not, the reason it didn't work financially was we were paying someone to do the job for us. And it only really works if you own it and you're going to do the job for yourself and pay yourself a 50k salary a year.
You're basically buying yourself a job at that point in time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where, this kind of echoes, it's one small part of our learnings with the whole journey where, if we, dare I say it, I'll just be completely honest, like I did start off extremely idealistic, coming from the city. I'm a city girl, he's a 5th generation farm boy. And my background obviously is in food. Always wanted to do, complete farm to plate, be able to provide everything straight from the farm. All your meat, your vegetables, your eggs, your honey, your fruit, everything. And so obviously a market garden was part of that. But I will be honest and say, as time has gone on, the whole farming journey has been a real journey of being very idealistic and thinking that you can do paradise, moving towards a much more realistic frame of mind and going, actually, things need to be done to feed the world and actually feed populations, not just turn up at the farmer's market and feed 10 families a week. Things need to be done on scale. There needs to be a lot of efficiencies that go with it, and yeah, it's definitely not all beer and Skittles, I guess you could say. Yeah. So, and that's kind of mimicked a lot of our, what we've kind of been involved in. It's a constant kind of battle with, idealism, I guess, with realism. Yeah, and you're kind of just trying to find the right balance, right?
I went to a workshop at yours a few years ago about like direct seeded natives.
Oh yes,
and
yeah.
wondering how that's going.
With Dave, was that with Dave Kingan?
No, that was with
Yeah,
the Burford planter.
yeah.
Yes. No, they didn't succeed. I'm sorry. Rabbits got to the seed before anything else did. Yeah, that's.
Because they're so tiny.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar thing. It's about getting that foundations right. I think that would absolutely work. In fact, I'd bet money on it. But you'd have to have the conditions, the soil prep right. You'd have to have like all the conditions controlled, and then it would work well. That's probably my big lesson with farming is so much is like you want to believe that nature's just going to like miraculously make things work, but you actually do. There is a certain level of control that you have to grow a decent crop, and those native trees are probably a good example of that.
Just a question with regards to the grain growing. So presumably you're making income from that to make it worthwhile to be growing that on farm. And you talked about crop rotation, so I'm interested how that slots in terms of preparing soil. And the other thing I want to know is, what do you do with the stalks?
Stalks of
Any grain?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there was three questions. I'll do the easy one first. Sorry, I'll do the cereals. The easiest one first is we have a very large combine harvester, and it can chop the straw, and so we don't export the straw off the farm. The straw we keep on the paddock to feed the worms in the soil, and then we'll go over.
mulch.
So it just becomes a tilth, and to be honest, it just blows it into dust. Like you don't even. So that's the first one. Yeah, the second, your first point.
With things like sunflowers, though, for example, it's chopping it all up. We just lay it all out on the field, and it's so carbonaceous, if that's a word.
No, but what comes through the machine, it just blows it to pieces.
And that just gets left
it
over
just
the
so
mulch.
out the back of the machine kind of comes all this tilth. We grow a lot of crops. We grow in the vicinity of about 700-800 tons of crops a year. So that depends on what we do, and it's a major income stream for us. The barley we turn into beer, so that's the Swifty brand that we own. We've also played a little bit with whiskey for some fun, and then to be honest, like some of it's exported, some of it's for local, some of it's for feed, some of it's human consumption. It just sort of depends on the crop, and the crop rotation, as a rule of thumb, goes something like chicory, clover, wheat, cover crop. We might go peas.
Nitrogen fixer.
Yeah, nitrogen fix with peas, and then we'll do another cover crop, and then spring barley, and then cover crop, then spring barley again, and then back in chicory clover or sunflowers as part of that rotation.
Yeah, they're all the different crops, have their pros and cons, I guess. Like for example, the sunflowers, they're such a high carbon sequester, aren't they? And once you've harvested the seeds, which we harvest for oil, and they're all spray free, you're left with all the stalks and the heads all over the ground, which are great for feeding the soil and will actually help build the carbon soil back up. But on the downside, because we're spray free with them, we have to wait for them to die and dry out naturally, which takes months, instead of desiccating and harvesting straight away. So in that time, over the months, we won't harvest until beginning of May, roughly. Bird pressure, you'll lose 50% of your crop to birds. So it's probably not a great money spinner.
Well, I've got lasers this year.
Yeah, so hopefully they work.
I've set lasers to dance across the crops, try to keep birds off them. But
so they might not be the best for not the most profitable crop, but because we've got a direct product to market, we have our own sunflower oil. That's a good tick, but then also great for the soil as well. So another tick. But
Stalks into buildings, maybe.
Stalks into buildings.
Yeah, straw bale buildings. Or
you could potentially.
that'd be cool.
I think hemp would probably still be a better.
Yeah, no, I'm
Substrate.
Sure too. I can talk to you about those things.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, mate.
Regarding your food shop, can you go into a bit more and sort of the pros and cons, and where are the opportunities for other businesses? Because there's so many other towns that don't have a local supply, and if someone was thinking about going down that track,
Like a farm shop.
but not so much as supplying everything off their property, or most
Yeah.
if you guys do, if they really get to look around.
So our biggest shop, I think, carries about 18,000 SKUs.
Yeah.
to give you some sort of sense of scale. And I think you almost...
Biggest, I mean, but in a nutshell, if you're thinking of going into food retail, biggest thing is your margins. You will only survive if you are a margin hunter. You have to make your margins absolutely work. That's kind of the underlying thing. As long as you can get your margins right, which you're looking at minimum 30 to 40% on average, then you'll have a chance at surviving. And on top of that, I guess staff.
No, you need a certain volume of turnover for it to work.
Obviously.
Anything under a certain threshold, it's just a hobby.
And then your staff ratio to turnover. Yeah. That would be in a nutshell. Yeah.
At 18,000 SKUs, you're not doing 18,000 SKUs on your own.
No. We've got five SKUs from the farm.
I was going to say a farm. Yeah. Farm's a small supplier in the grand schemes of the
we
markets,
do lamb, eggs, honey, sunflower oil, wool, blankets. 5 SKUs from the farm. Yeah. Did have the market garden vegetables, obviously, but not anymore. Yeah.
I was just wondering, like, structuring some of your partnerships and relationships in that, like, say, butchers or stuff like that. Are people all on wages, or do you give them some ownership in enterprises?
No, the whole thing's wages. It gets very complex very quickly if you start handing out equity. I wouldn't be opposed to profit share, but as far as no, that's a real quick way to lose control and staff, high turnover of staff. And well, actually, to be fair, we don't have high turnover staff, but it wouldn't be hard for there to be a high turnover of staff in a region like this, and all of a sudden you're not in control of your own business.
Yeah, I think the thing is, like with other businesses we've worked in the past, like it can be a great thing with, like my food bag, for example, it was through sweat equity that we earned our place in that. But people's situations change, and if you're not in full ownership or control of it, you won't be able to change with what you believe is the right way to go when you've got someone else maybe thinking otherwise. So if it's quite a new kind of venture, it can be a bit tricky to move fast and to pivot fast when it's not when you've got others involved in the ownership.
Just to expand on that point, that's a really good one. I think when we picked up Royalburn, there was no easy hymn sheets to sing off. Like, we have been trying to figure out, and we're not there yet, we're still trying to figure out, like, it's kind of like squiggly lines to the end destination. We don't even know what the end destination is. And so what I'm trying to say is, it's not as if we're like, okay, so like we've done beer, right? That's a much simpler playbook. Like, we know here's the players in the market, here's the market segmentation, here's what saturation looks like, here's how we believe we can segment our place in it. For the Royalburn business, it's been so much more challenging because we don't know where it's going. In the moment that you've got other equity shareholders and their expectations, it becomes a lot more challenging.
Yes.
Diversity, and you guys are bloody legends at it, and I love watching your program, and I was
Thank you.
horrified when that chicken fell off the strop.
Yeah.
It was hard to believe it was you can't.
Yeah.
he definitely had a few expletives.
On that diversity space, the other farmers wanting and having to should go down that track, where do you see the sort of the short wins where farmers could go down for diversity?
That's a good question. Very good question. First thing I'd say is probably be wary. Everyone talks about diversify, because you don't have all your eggs in one basket, and then you'll be more resilient. I wouldn't actually necessarily agree with that.
From a primary production perspective, if I was to say, if I'm going to throw $1,000 at something right now, it would be agritourism. It would be something in the hospitality space. It would be in like tiny houses. It would be in experiences. It'd be it'd be tiny houses. It would be farm experiences.
Yeah.
I did a Nuffield scholarship last year, and I spent 4 months overseas looking at various farming systems, and the one that I was just most taken with was Scotland, where there was just, they've got to a point where trying to maximise return off the farm, like the dollars per hectare is almost...
Well, in their words, they said, we don't farm food anymore, we farm people. That's where it's headed in the UK. The only way that farmers, their income is agritourism now. You know, they've inherited... You can't own a farm in the UK unless you've inherited it or you've made lots of money somewhere else. And you're not going to make money off farming just in primary production, full stop. So, and they're aware of that now. They've kind of accepted it. Hence why they say we don't farm food anymore, we farm
And they're doing
people.
quite well out of it, like, to be pretty honest. I think I look at a lot of the places around this district and think, far out, like you could,
Yeah.
That
would
would
be
be where I'd be going.
That's where you diversify, I think. Yeah.
Hi.
Hey,
Lisa.
Lisa. From where, sorry?
Crosstown Farm.
Oh, lovely. Oh,
Yeah.
well done. Your produce is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you need to talk about the market
Yeah, I
garden.
just wanted to reflect a little bit on that.
Yeah.
I don't know the ins and outs of that market garden. But I think you're right about, and just based on my experience, it does take, for me, it was probably 4 to 5 years of me carrying this sweat equity to get to the point where I can pay people and
Yes.
have a, what feels like an okay enough income.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that is a thing, that there is a, and you guys like had the good fortune, I think, of having the ability to put in the proper infrastructure straight away, which is a big barrier for a lot of market.
Yeah.
But possibly it was I think one thing that I've learned from doing it is that the smaller you start in size, the better.
Yeah.
The one I watched on your show where it was getting not good, and then Carlos was like,
Do more.
Do more, yeah.
more panicking. And I was watching that going, no. I would have suggested the opposite.
Yeah.
Like
Grow organically.
Lachlan
Yeah.
is much smaller. Our market garden is half an acre.
Yeah.
And I think the success we've had is because of the intensity of the rotations and
Yes.
management.
Yeah.
And
And you have to be really clever about what crops you choose, right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
also I credit our success to me signing up to Jane Fortier's masterclass. He's a big pioneer, a big mover and shaker in the market garden world from Quebec.
Yeah.
So we're basically following his methodology.
Yeah.
and
High turnover, high intensity. Yeah.
yeah, he was not quite like Stone in that way, but he was a bit more diversified, and yeah, I think that those guys are about 20 years ahead of us. And so having that knowledge base to kind of work from was quite amazing.
Yeah.
But I did wonder, all the equipment and gear that you had, what happened to it? And
How do I get it for like 2 cents in the dollar?
I'm not actually thinking for me because I'm actually nasty up, but I have interns and I have connections within this world, and like,
Yeah.
do you have all the
Yeah, we
gear
did.
still, like,
We have sold some of it, but because we're still not, so it's only been 6 months that it's been closed for.
Yeah.
So we still kind of haven't made the decision as to exactly what we're going to do yet, like whether or not we try it in a different format, or whether someone actually.
to lease it?
Yeah, exactly. So we're not quite sure there yet. So before we make that decision, yeah, we're
Because I think that would be, like I said, the biggest barrier for a lot of people starting
is
out
the startup costs and everything.
is the capital needed
Yeah.
to get the
Yeah.
wash pack going.
I mean, putting in irrigation to begin with, right, is huge and costs so much.
Oh, we spent
yeah.
$30,000
The
on
pack shed,
compost.
Yeah,
But I think if there was someone new coming in, leasing it, I would tell them to
Yeah.
start with half an acre
yeah,
and then build out to
Yeah.
2 to 3 acres at the most.
yeah,
That's
true.
the scale that the guys in Quebec are. Like the biggest ones are 3 acres.
Yeah,
And the most of them are 1, 2.
Yeah.
Really
Mm.
young.
and are you organic or are you fully organic? Okay. You don't have cooch, obviously. Yeah. Yeah, quick turnover for them to. Yeah. Yeah. Rotating to establish. Yeah. Yeah. Who knows what-
Okay, we
See
might
the
wrap it
future.
up there. Thank you guys so
Oh,
much.
absolute
You guys
pleasure.
really are legends in the space, and just like big mihi to raising your head up above this sort of platform, because we know like how harsh New Zealand critique can be. And so just like, yeah, again, stand strong and go well
thanks,
for
thanks, Seb.
that mission, and it's just like a
Thanks.
real-
Yeah, well, thank you
thanks
guys
for
for all your
coming. Thank you.
mahi.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so Seb gave a bit of a background about everyone that was here today, and it sounds like everyone's doing some incredible things, and really trying to make a go of it, and get more people involved as well, and just spread the word. So
It's
thank
been
you
awesome
guys,
watching
yeah.
all the kids running around, to be honest. That's probably been one of the highlights, is like seeing the kids actually,
Part of it.
part of it. I think that's probably the one key takeaway for us, is trying to get the kids involved as best we can, so at least the next generation understand how food is produced.
That's tricky.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cheers.
Cheers, team.
Now we just have one last session.